Hey guys, Nick with Phone Arena here, and this is the new LG G8. It is the company's latest flagship smartphone, and even though it doesn't look all that special on the outside, it can do some sci-fi level stuff. With Hand ID enabled, you can unlock the G8 by hovering your hand above it, and a new feature called Air Motion lets you control the phone using hand gestures. But party tricks aside, is there anything else that the G8 has to impress with? I used it for a week to find out. First of all, I want to say that the red color option easily stands out in a sea of black and white rectangles. It looks stunning. But other than that, the G8 is your typical slab of glass and metal and can be easily mistaken for a phone from 2018. It doesn't have a fancy curved display like some other flagship phones, but the flat sides make it comfortable to hold, which is a plus. You might have also noticed that there is no camera bump. This makes for a cleaner look, but be careful. The flat back of the G8 makes the camera lens easier to scratch by accident because it comes in full contact with the surface underneath it. I must also point out that the G8 is one very slippery phone. The dedicated Google Assistant button is still present. As before, you can use it to access the Google Assistant conveniently from any screen. If you don't use it, or if you often find yourself pressing it by accident, you can disable it, but you cannot configure the button to do something else, say to open an application of your choice. On the back of the G8 we see a classic fingerprint scanner. There isn't much to say about it, it is fast and reliable, just as you would expect. We are also happy with LG's Face Unlock implementation. It uses the so-called Z camera at the front. This is a set of sensors that scans your face in 3 dimensions, which makes it impossible to full face unlock with something like your Facebook profile picture. The G8 can quickly and easily recognize me, even in the dark or on a bright sunny day. And it can also be used together with Raise to Wake, so all it takes to unlock the G8 is lifting it and looking at it. If you wear prescription glasses, it would be a good idea to scan your face a second time just to make sure that the phone knows what you look like with and without them on. Unfortunately, Face Unlock does struggle with most sunglasses. We tested it with 6 different pairs, but again, scanning your face one more time takes care of this. And then there is Hand ID. It uses the same sensors to recognize you by literally scanning the unique pattern of veins in the palm of your hand. It is supposed to be really secure, but unfortunately it is slower and less reliable than any of the 2 other methods, because your hand has to be precisely over the sensor. The whole experience is so frustrating that I see most people simply disabling Hand ID soon after trying it. Like it or not, the G8 has a notch at the top of the display. It is nothing to worry about, but if you don't like it, you can still hide it by applying a background to the screen area on the sides. The screen itself looks great, and even though it doesn't reach 1000 nits of brightness like that on the G7, outdoor visibility has never been an issue in my experience. Colors are a bit cold by default, but there is an option called True View in the settings menu. This adjusts the screen's color temperature to match that of the ambient light, so everything on it looks more natural. The LG G8 comes with Android 9 Pie out of the box, but you won't find most of its key features in LG's custom interface. Even digital well-being isn't available. LG has chosen to keep only Android 9's gesture navigation, which is disabled by default. Using it doesn't feel any faster or more convenient, so I simply chose to use LG's classic on-screen buttons. What's nice to see is that swiping down on the fingerprint scanner lets you pull down the notifications panel, which is very convenient. LG's custom interface also comes with useful features like an always-on display, which shows the time and pending notifications while the phone is in standby, and the floating bar, which is like an always accessible list of shortcuts. What you won't find is a dark mode, which is a bit disappointing, and the entire interface lacks visual polish. The default theme, for example, treats you to this slow and choppy animation each time you unlock the phone. Air Motion gesture controls is one of the G8's key standout features. It lets you open apps, control music playback, or mute alarms or calls using hand gestures that you perform in front of the Z camera. Unfortunately, just like Hand ID, these gestures are slow and frustrating to use. First, the phone needs to detect your hand, then you pull back slightly so that a menu with controls would appear, and then, if you've done all of this correctly, you move your hand left or right to perform the action. The whole concept is that Air Motion lets you interact with the phone without touching it. But I don't see the point. After all, even if you launch the app this way, you will still have to touch your screen to use it. The LG G8 is powered by the Snapdragon 855, which makes it one of the fastest Android phones around, at least in theory. As expected, it can handle every modern game without issues. The interface, however, does feel slow from time to time when launching or switching between applications. This is not a slow phone by any means, but phones like the Google Pixel or the OnePlus 6T feel much more responsive. At least the 128GB of storage are plentiful. If you need more, there is a microSD card slot at your disposal. On the back of the LG G8 we find two cameras. One is a regular camera, and it's the one that you'll be using most of the time. The other is a wide-angle camera. It has a few drawbacks, but overall it is really nice having, especially when shooting in tight spots. I had the chance to take the G8 with me on a quick vacation, and I'm generally happy with the performance of its cameras. Most of my photos have a natural look and true-to-life colors, probably because LG's AI camera mode is disabled by default, so there's nothing to exaggerate the colors or contrast in my photos, and to me that is a good thing. I often found myself using the wide-angle camera, and even though it adds some distortion, it is really fun to experiment with. Perhaps only details in the pictures could be better. Evidence of aggressive sharpening and noise filtering is easy to spot, especially in low-light pictures. Speaking of low light, the LG G8 comes with a mode called Night View, which is supposed to improve low-light pictures. But in practice, after testing the feature out at night, I couldn't see much of a difference between night view pictures and shots that were taken in fully automatic mode. Like most other phones, the G8 has a portrait mode that adds background blur to your pictures. But on top of that, it also has a mode called Studio, which lets you add light effects to your pictures. Overall, it is fun to play with. It is available on the back and on the front-facing camera, so if you're taking a selfie in less than optimal conditions, you can kind of add some extra light to the image. Selfies do look okay overall. There is enough detail in selfies taken during the day, but in low light, it was common for me to end up with a slightly blurry photo. With the LG G8, videos can be captured at up to 4K resolution and 60 frames per second, but in this mode you cannot switch between cameras and you don't have good image stabilization. Most of the time I just used 4K video at 30 FPS, which looks fine, and the stabilization does a good job at keeping the frame steady. I only found the wind noise filter annoying because it makes voices sound harsh and artificial. Speaking of sound quality, the screen on the LG G8 doubles as a speaker. It literally vibrates to produce sound and creates a stereo setup together with the bottom-firing boombox speaker. However, the bottom speaker is much louder, so the sound isn't balanced, and overall music lacks high frequencies. But at least it gets seriously loud. Phone call quality is also excellent. In terms of battery life, the LG G8 has been a solid performer during my testing. It lasts me about a day and a half on average, and my usage includes watching plenty of YouTube videos in the evening, some gaming during my lunch break, and a few hours of Spotify streaming throughout the day. The phone takes about 1 hour and 40 minutes to charge from 0 to full using its stock charger, which is a typical result given the size of its battery. It also supports wireless charging. In conclusion, the LG G8 does not impress with Hand ID, and its Air Motion gestures aren't great either. But other than that, it is a well-rounded Android phone with a good-looking screen, a decent set of cameras, and a fast Snapdragon 855 chip. In the US, it is about to go on sale at a price of around $600, which is fair considering what you get in exchange. Sure, it might not look as futuristic as some of the alternatives, but we are glad to see that LG stuck with a classic fingerprint scanner and a reliable face unlock for the LG G8, instead of replacing them with a less than perfect fingerprint reader inside the display. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to never miss any of our future videos.